And a reminder to you that if you don't want your image used, you can just keep your camera off. Although I love it when cameras are on, but I understand data can make it a problem. On Thursday, it seems like a long time ago now. On Thursday, we had an excellent session, mini session from Rukia on a really important topic. And it was such an important topic that we ended up taking a little more time, which I thought was needed and valuable. But as a result, my session was a bit quick and rushed. And I remember Margot asking if we could repeat the session. So I have a poll for you. It wouldn't be repeating the session. I wouldn't just give you the same one over again. I would give you the same basic part of it, but with different activities and actually with some more explanation. So if you could answer this poll, if you would like a redo of task-based learning or like a revision of task-based learning. And if you don't, I will not be insulted at all. If you feel like, no, it was fine, I got it, that's fine too. And then we'll probably do this a week from now because I've already prepared Thursday's presentation or session. Okay, I'll give it a few more seconds, although it looks like more than half of you have completed the poll. I have 64% of you have completed the poll. If you haven't completed the poll, or if you weren't, well, I guess if you weren't here last week, then maybe, I guess it's just a question if the topic is interesting to you. All right, I've got 70% of people have answered this poll. I'm going to end the poll, and it is resounding results that yes, there is a request to redo or revise task-based learning. Okay, so a week from today, we'll look at task-based learning again. It won't just be the same thing. I will change some aspects of it. Okay, great. All right, so in our session this evening, we're going to be talking about pronunciation as mentioned. So we're going to identify the challenges and the advantages of teaching pronunciation as a non-native English speaker. All of you have amazing English, but I don't think that any of you are native English speakers. I don't think that was the first language that you learned. And so you are in the situation of being non-native English speakers. And some people feel that's a disadvantage, but there are actually many advantages as well. We'll try out some different pronunciation activities, and as time allows, we will reflect on the session at the end. So just a little bit of a pre-discussion. English is not your mother tongue, as far as I know. Is this an advantage or disadvantage when teaching communication? You may raise your hand to speak, or you may answer in the chat, giving your opinion. Is this an advantage or disadvantage? If you think it's an advantage, I would love to know why. If you think it's a disadvantage, I would also love to know why. So please feel free to share in the chat or raise your hand to speak. I've worked with a number of international teachers, and they tend to feel that it is a disadvantage. I've met many international teachers who don't like to teach pronunciation. They think that they can't. But I remember somebody last week said they love teaching it. Oh, Leonard says it's an advantage. Leonard, do tell us why, either through speaking or through typing. I like your positive attitude. I thought I saw a hand up. Ah, Jeffrey, go ahead.
Okay, for me, it will be a disadvantage because when you're a native speaker, it becomes easier for you to pronounce some words. But when you have English as your second language, some words may be difficult to pronounce. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Jeffrey. That's I think, a really nice, simple explanation of something a lot of people feel. As mentioned earlier, I've worked with a lot of international teachers, and they often know how to pronounce it, but they often lack the confidence to feel like they can tell students for sure how to pronounce something. And so it can make them a little hesitant. Irene says it's an advantage because it gives us an opportunity to learn from others. Oh, that's very positive. Thanks, Irene. Jumas also says it's an advantage. Multilingualism allows us to mingle with people of many languages. Very great, very good. Seth, you have strong feelings. Great disadvantage. Seth, please tell us why.
Yeah, Mina, hello, how are you?
Hello.
How is everyone?
Everyone is good. How about yourself?
Oh, great, I'm fine. Now, you see, the biggest problem is, when we are doing the L1, when you do the L1, you, from where you come from particularly, language basically is learned from the environment. So you are in a setup where people don't speak English, and then your L1 does not correlate with English. So this is where we have a problem. Sometimes you carry the language from your native, does not have some element of pronunciation in relation to English. There are words that are totally arbitrary to the L1. So it becomes tricky when you are teaching pronunciation. That is why we have a lot of consonant displacement when you are pronouncing English. Two, we have a lot of vowel insertion based from the influence of L1. So it can never be an advantage if English is not your native language when you are teaching pronunciation, particularly if, like for instance, there are people, the native, particularly some of the Bantu speaking communities, there are big problem with pronunciation. Why? It is the effect of L1. Someone could be a professor of language, but he still has that effect of the native language. So to me, it has got a very big disadvantage when you are employing the L2, or particularly when you are teaching, because it has got a background effect from your L1.
Thank you, Seth. I also appreciate, Seth, you identified some of the specific challenges here in Kenya with pronunciation. You mentioned consonant displacement and vowel insertion, which is interesting to me. Mostly, I speak to teachers like you and other people whose English is very good. And so I don't notice as many pronunciation issues as you teachers do with your students who are new to English or maybe coming later to English. And so that's very helpful for me to know. All right, Imali says, I think it is an advantage because English is a language that is used worldwide and will be beneficial for learners to know pronunciation. It even helps us as teachers to learn more pronunciation. Okay, so that kind of room to grow. Speaking of pronunciation, I have trouble pronouncing your name in Diangui because I've never heard it. And the letters, when I look at those letters together as a native English speaker, I feel confused. You always have interesting things to say. You think it is, it's fun learning unless as a teacher you portray yourself as a linguistic god. Very interesting. Yes. So if we keep some humility, then it's not such a problem. But yes, you're right. If we go into the class saying, oh, I'm an English god, I know how to pronounce everything. Yes, that will be a problem. All right, Benedict says it's an advantage as it allows us to learn more. Very nice. Colin says it's a very advantage for us to learn from each other and also rectify our common mistakes. Yeah, I think that's why it's important to have a sense of community and trust. Carol says it's an advantage, helps us in motivation of those into cross-cultural heritage. That's true. If your pronunciation is perfect, what's your motivation to improve? And Yangui says, it is because learners come to class with all kinds of pronunciation. It becomes fun, learners realizing that they have been getting it all wrong. I like that kind of fun and friendly view of it. Excellent. Okay, well, I like this optimistic view. Although we certainly do have some of the issues that were pointed out as disadvantages as well. All right, so these are some common beliefs people have about pronunciation. So many people believe that the goal of pronunciation is to speak like a native speaker. Many people also believe that students need a native speaker to model correct pronunciation. And many people also believe that native speakers are the best pronunciation teachers. Do you agree with these statements? You may agree with some, but not others. You may agree with all. You may disagree with all of them. Feel free to answer in the chat, or you can raise your hand to speak. Go ahead, Carol.
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. I have these three statements up here. The goal of pronunciation is to speak like a native speaker. Students need a native speaker to model correct pronunciation, and native speakers are the best pronunciation teachers. These are common beliefs. Do you agree or disagree with these statements? Lillian has strong feelings. No, no, no. I would love to hear more, Lillian. Juma says, I don't agree with the second. Many times native speakers are not good in clear pronunciation. That is a good point. Native speakers don't worry about the pronunciation because they are native speakers. As a result, sometimes they have some sloppy pronunciation. And I'm sure this is probably true in your country, that people from different areas pronounce things differently. And this is also true in the US. Different regions have different pronunciation. And as you probably have noticed, Americans and British have very different pronunciation. Rabina, you also disagree. Feel free to tell us why. Go ahead, Benedict.
Hi.
Hi.
I tend to agree with the first statement, whereby the goal of pronunciation is to speak like a native speaker. See, according to me, the goal of pronunciation is just to get good in a language you're speaking. It's not necessarily to speak like a native.
Excellent. I know many people who agree with that, including me. Thank you. Carol, go ahead.
Okay, I agree with the second one, which is students need a native speaker to model correct pronunciation. That's because students who are willing to learn and gain confidence during pronunciation teaching, they get to receive the required guidance and are ready to improve using best ways by becoming familiar with the sounds, okay, and the intonations and the stress patterns of English. That way they are able to have that confidence to go there and actually express themselves. So I agree with the second one.
That's an interesting point you make. So by seeing a native speaker, they will have more confidence because they feel that this is the way it's done. Whereas maybe if they get their pronunciation modeling from a non-native speaker, they won't feel so confident. That's a good point you make.
Yes.
Thank you. And Dangui, if anyone in Dangui, feel free to correct my pronunciation or anyone else. In Kenya, Kikuyu, L1 speakers have a problem with R and L. Oh, and C, interesting. And they'll say, actually it's actuary. Chance becomes chance. That's very interesting. Uh-huh. I did not know that. The R and L issue is common in a lot of Asian countries as well. Oh, very good. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, I just missed something. Okay. Molly has strong feelings. I don't agree at all. The goal of pronunciation, in my own opinion, is to get correct pronunciation of words. Students don't really need a native speaker to model pronunciation because some native speakers might talk too fast for learners to even hear what the native speaker is saying. Ah, these are good points as well. Jimas, go ahead.
Thank you. In my opinion, I feel then it means for us to be keen to listen to a native speaker, then even the native speakers, they need to be people who are linguistic oriented, because you know you have some native speakers who are science oriented, sort of, and so you'll find the pronunciation sometimes they slag in their language, they pull some letters, sometimes they pronounce in a way that like most of us we believe that like the English people, Americans especially, some of them talk through the nose. So when it comes to clear pronunciation, it becomes a problem. So even for the native speaker, he has to be someone who is very keen on pronunciation, someone who is linguistically oriented.
That is a great point. Yes, we can't just grab any native speaker off the street and expect them to be a good model. I think that's interesting. You said Americans talk through their nose. I had many students tell me that Americans eat their words. They don't say the whole word. They just kind of bite it off at the end. So their pronunciation isn't clear. Oh, Seth, I feel like you looked at my slides already. The goal is to get proper pronunciation. All right, so everything up here, these three statements are myths. Many people believe these things, but actually, the goal of L2 pronunciation instruction is comfortable intelligibility. So basically what Seth just said, for people to be able to understand you. You don't need to speak like a native speaker. Native speakers may be good pronunciation models if they are a kind of a linguistic expert or someone who's very aware of their words, as Jimas was saying. But an L2 speaker who has clear speaking, clear pronunciation is also a great model. And so it doesn't really matter if the person is a native speaker or not. It matters that they are a good model for pronunciation. And the best pronunciation teachers have good training and are dedicated to their students. So it's not so much about the language you were born speaking, but more about your training as a teacher and knowing how to train others and being dedicated, committed to students. So as non-native English speakers, you do have many advantages. So you have all learned firsthand how to use good English pronunciation. I have not learned this. I acquired it. I could not explain how I learned how to say the words I say, but you do. You know how your mother tongue compares to English. You know what kinds of issues there are going to be. You might have some suggestions about things students can do to help them. You also have great stories about your own success and your frustrations. And by sharing this with your students, you can really motivate and inspire them. I can have stories about other languages, but I can't with English, except for, I don't know, maybe when I was a baby. Those are not very inspiring. And you are a realistic model is the other thing. We can have a lot of frustration when non-native English speakers want to speak like native speakers, because that is unfortunately almost impossible for reasons that we'll talk about. However, they can learn to have very clear, intelligible English, as you all do. And in the world, most English speakers are not native speakers. And so many of your students will not be speaking English with native speakers. They'll be speaking English with Germans. They'll be speaking English with Chinese people, with Indian people, not necessarily with native English speakers. And so it is not necessary that they have native pronunciation. And also, what is native pronunciation? Is native pronunciation speaking like a British person from London? Like speaking from like a British person from the northern part of England? Is it speaking like an American from the East Coast? Is it like speaking from a Canadian from the West Coast, an Australian, South African? There are many versions of native speaker English pronunciation. Tiangui says, I think with pronunciation, we lost the game with original teaching methodology. The teaching of English, unlike French, is not keen on pronunciation, and thus the myriad discrepancies in pronunciation. Therefore, when learners hear you speak correctly, they think you are showing off. For example, most learners have been taught the letter H in the word honest is vocalized. Oh, that's interesting. So you have a bunch of people walking around and saying, oh, a honest person. But when they hear you, they think you're showing off. Very interesting. Okay, so we can have some issues with that. Very good. Thank you. All right, so best practices here. So when we're talking about teaching pronunciation, what kinds of activities or exercises are we doing? Well, hopefully we're not doing drills. Hopefully we are doing things that are communicative and authentic, and activities that promote noticing. So instead of us saying, pronounce it like this, your learners hear something and say, oh, actually, those native speakers are not saying honest, they're saying honest. What do we focus on? So actually, the most important elements of pronunciation are rhythm, stress, and intonation, and communicating through rhythm, stress, and intonation. We'll be looking more at that. When do we teach pronunciation? Should we have a specific pronunciation class? I would say no, because that I think would get boring. But we should incorporate pronunciation into other classes. Whenever we notice there's a need for it, we should bring in a little lesson. But there definitely are some challenges. So unlike with grammar, vocabulary, all those other aspects of English, which you can learn at any age. So I know we often think of it being easier to learn English as a young learner, but if you have an 80-year-old grandmother or grandfather that you want to teach English, it is possible to do. It may be difficult, but it definitely is possible. However, pronunciation is something that is limited by age. As when you are a baby, you are hearing all of the sounds of your language, and those are the sounds that your brain and your ear learned to recognize. So as you grow older, you may not notice some differences in some sounds. For example, if we think about Thai speakers who have a tonal language, some of the tones I can hear, some of them just sound the same to me because my ear is not tuned to it. Also, as we grow older, the muscles in our jaws, our throats, even our mouth, they become set for our language. Linguists say that babies are born making all of the sounds that are part of human language in all of the world. However, they learn to only repeat the sounds that they hear. And so by the age of 3 or 4, they're pretty much set with their ability to pronounce words. If someone really, really wanted to become like a native speaker in their pronunciation, they wouldn't go to their English teacher. They would actually go to a speech pathologist, and a speech pathologist would help them develop different muscles and give them exercises to change their pronunciation. And it would be something that would actually take years to do. So it's something that isn't really, native speaker pronunciation is not a realistic goal for pretty much anyone over the age of 5. However, comprehensible pronunciation is an achievable goal for anyone. So when we're looking at pronunciation, we have 2 things. We have segmentals and suprasegmentals. These are the 2 components, the 2 building blocks of pronunciation. Segmentals are the individual sounds or phonemes. For example, when we're teaching little children, B makes a B sound. That would be a phoneme. At one time, this was the focus of pronunciation. So pronunciation classes just had students going around saying B, boy, T, toy. And maybe when we're working with certain issues, for example, the Kikuyu mixing up L and R and having issues with C, this might be something we want to work on because those are phonemes. These are usually taught through drills and repetition. So repeat after me, like this. Suprasegmentals are the other building block of pronunciation. These are the features of speech that stretch over individual sounds. So when we're talking about B, as in boy, boy, I noticed this myself when I was a young teacher, teaching, for example, the be verb. And then we say, I am. And then everybody repeat, I am. But in speech, I never say I am. I usually say I am. And so when we start to put these sounds together, they start to affect each other. Suprasegmentals are also called prosody, and they include rhythm, stress, and intonation, some terms that have been brought up earlier tonight by some of you. And these are very important for making ourselves understood. Of course, segmentals are important. For example, if you tell me, I don't know, that you would like to sail on a sheep, I will be a little confused. I think you mean you want to sail on a ship, but I will understand you. Rhythm, stress, and intonation are related actually to brain patterns. The brain learns to recognize certain rhythms, stresses, and intonations of the language, and the brain recognizes those rhythms and subconsciously organizes the information that it hears. And so when people have very good pronunciation of phonemes, but they have issues with rhythm, stress, and intonation, they can actually be quite difficult to understand. A classic example I use often is talking about Indian speakers. So people in India have excellent English. You probably know many Indians here who have excellent English, excellent grammar, vocab. Their phonemes tend to be pretty clear, but the rhythm, stress, and intonation of their language is completely different than native speaker English. And so although they're speaking perfectly correctly, they can be quite difficult to understand, especially when first encountering this type of English. So we'll take a quick look at segmentals and then we'll move on to suprasegmentals. So these are often taught with minimal pairs. Minimal pairs are words that are completely different, but they have everything about them sounds the same except for one element. So rhyming words would be one example of minimal pairs. So we see sat and cat are minimal pairs because that at sound is the same in both. It's the first phoneme that's different. The example I gave earlier, ship and sheep, they both have a sh and p, but the middle sound is different. And we can also have minimal pairs with the last sound different. So course and court, they both have that core in the beginning, but one ends with a s and one ends with a t. So those are minimal pairs. Can anybody give me any minimal pairs for the word box? You can give a rhyming word.
Books.
Books. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Actually, nice job, because that's actually the hardest one. I see 2 foxes in the chat. So we changed the first letter and those are rhyming words. Rhyming words are usually the easiest, but you're absolutely right. Books and box, they both has that b and that x sound at the end, but one has a ah and one has a but a lot of people don't get it because it's spelled so differently. That is a great example. Thank you. I've got fox, books, pox like chicken pox. Yes, very good. Thanks, Lillian. And then how about if we can change that last sound? So something that sounds like ba but doesn't end with a x. I can't think of very many. Ah, okay. Boy, I would say no. The spelling is very similar, so you would think that it would be, but the vowel sound is also different. So we actually have two parts that are different. The only thing the same is the b, but the vowel in boy is a oi, and the vowel in box is an ah. And then the last sound is different too. So that is not a minimal pair, but that is a good guess. Bot is a minimal pair for box. They both have that ba, one ending with a t and one ending with a x. Ah, box cooks. I think it's a little different because cooks has a and box has a ah. If we used instead cocks like chickens, that would be a minimal pair. Cooks is a minimal pair for books, but not for box. Box and boy sound. Ah, that's so interesting, Nancy. You know what? I was just, so that and that oi sound the same. That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, very good. Box and bone. To you, Lillian, it might sound the same. To me, it sounds different because box has kind of a soft O, and then bone has a O, like a more long O to me. Josiah, socks, yes. All right, so this can be tricky. All right, so if we're using minimal pairs, we could just drill. And we could just have students repeat after me, box, books, box, socks, box, fox. But that gets really boring really quickly. And earlier I mentioned that it's better if we're doing something communicative and authentic. So let me, hopefully I did not throw this away. I did. I'm going to give you my phone number, but I'm going to give it to you using some minimal pairs. So we have here some words that sound very similar. Part, put, pat, pet, pert, pot, peat, pit, put, and port. I'm going to give you my phone number. See if you can guess what my phone number is. My phone number is pot, port, put. Port, put, part, pot. I'll give it to you again. It's pot, port, put. Port, put, part, pot. All right, Josiah, what's my phone number?
If you can slow down a bit, then you repeat. We are going to give you exact number.
Okay.
Yes.
But don't check on WhatsApp.
The phone number is?
Yeah, go ahead. Shall I give it one more time?
Yes, please. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Oh, yeah. Nancy's also asking for it. Okay. This is very tricky. Pot, port, put. Port, put. Part, pot. Pot, port, put. Port, put. Part, pot. Oh, Lillian, you're not even going to guess. So this is not something I would suggest doing something this difficult with your learners because they're all vowel sounds, and vowel sounds are extremely hard to tell apart. Two native speakers might even have trouble. Oh, you're close, Nancy. You're very close. If I were working with students, I would probably use something with consonants. So especially if you're having students who are having issues, for example, with L and R, I would probably choose a bunch of L and R words. Oh, Molly, good confession there. So if you were working, oh, you're so close, Jeffrey, you're off by like one number. Jumas, you have a start there. If I were working with students, you can't remember the last ones. If I were working with students, I would probably have like, I don't know, maybe 0 is rap and 1 is lap and 2 is rat and 3 is lat. Something using consonants would be a lot easier for students. So just so you know, it's, oops, oh, maybe I can use my annotator. Okay, it's pot, port, put, port, put, part, pot. So close. Don't feel bad if you didn't get it. I've done this activity with teachers in many countries, and I don't know that anybody's ever gotten all of the numbers. All right, so this is just an example of a way that you could work on minimal pairs, doing something communicative rather than just drills. Having students exchange their phone numbers. So then they have practice speaking and listening, and they get to check each other. I've seen this done other ways too, with maps where the streets were different minimal pairs and students had to give directions to get somewhere, so that it seemed more of like a task or problem solving instead of just listen and repeat, which quickly becomes very boring. Something that can, moving on, something that I think a lot of teachers use are tongue twisters. But they often use them for, I think, the wrong purpose. So I think they're great for rhythm. Rhythm is the alternating of strong and weak syllables and words. So basically, this is the beat of a language. So some languages are always flat, but some, for example, if I'm, what name would I give such a task? I call that task, I call it activity, what's your phone number? Teresa. Go ahead, Josiah.
Yes, concerning your phone number, sorry,
Yeah, no problem.
I was guessing, I'll try to check from the WhatsApp. And I got late, people tried. So I could have gotten the exact number. Anyway, so I'm just being sincere.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Check. Thank you.
Nidiangui says, I teach in Kilifi County and the people have a problem with intonation. The Giriama language tends to use falling intonation quite often, such as they tend to chop off the last letters in words like really, surely at times. It becomes difficult to understand what they're saying. Because those are important parts of those words. When they're reading, say, a passage, you have to assist them to pronounce correctly. You are very in tune with the pronunciation issues. So we will definitely get to intonation. But yeah, rhythm is kind of the beat of our language. So for example, we have, maybe you probably all know Charlie Brown, Snoopy, is a cartoon, and the teacher in that cartoon, you never hear what she's saying, but she talks like this. Because that is the rhythm of English. So we tend to have a stress that goes up, and this is linked with intonation. It's hard to kind of separate these things, but every language has its own rhythm. Even though I don't speak many other languages, and this may be the case for you too, if you hear some people talking in another language, you may be able to guess what it is just by the kind of rhythm and intonation of the language. Actually, I had an issue when I was teaching in the international school in the US. We had an English only policy. And so students would be working in groups, and I would come over and say, speak English. And they'd say, teacher, we are speaking English. But I couldn't hear their words. I could only hear the sound of their speaking. And it didn't sound like English because they were using rhythm and intonation from their own language. All right, so back to tongue twisters. Tongue twisters are really fun. And a lot of times teachers use them in class to try to say them as fast as they can. And some people feel that's kind of a measure of fluency. But I don't think this is the best use of tongue twisters because even native speakers have trouble saying them quickly. I think it's much better to use tongue twisters to teach rhythm. So if we're saying this tongue twister, we have to use rhythm. So it's how much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. So I'm not saying it very fast, but if I say it with a different rhythm, how much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? It's very hard to say the tongue twister. And so in order to say it in the correct amount of time, we have to use the correct rhythm. How much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And so we kind of see that up and down. So this is a fun way to introduce rhythm to students. Does anybody want to say the tongue twister or share another tongue twister they know? Go ahead, Josiah.
Oh, sorry, my hand was not up. I forgot to know it.
You don't want to give it a shot? Oh, we have
to, if I did it, I'll be slow. How much would, let me repeat. How much would a chuck? Oh, no, sorry, I cannot. I'm not ready, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Carol, go ahead.
Okay, I remember the one that used to say, I saw seashells at the seashore.
Excellent. That's a great one for phonemes too, because we have that s and sh sound together as well. Excellent. Oh, I see many of you know some. The lady from Seychelles sells seashells at the seashore. And Peter Piper picked a peck of peppers. Yes, very good. Also, if you don't feel comfortable doing this with your class because you keep getting tongue-tied, you can also show a video. So that's also a nice solution. 4 foolish forms, 4's fought for food. I like that. Irene, go for it.
This
Hi.
one is an ancient one. It has been said. Jeffrey has just typed it.
Go ahead. Let's hear you say it.
Okay, Kantai is a Maasai boy. Kantai can tie a tie. Kantai can tie a tie. Why can't you tie a tie?
Can tie a tie. How can I tie a tie as can tie? I love that. Oh, that's really tricky. Oh, I see this is a very popular one. That's awesome. Josiah, I see your hand up. I don't know if it's left over or if you're ready to give it a shot. Oh, your hand is down. Okay. Ask a Kikuyu English speaker to say, oh, go ahead.
Not yet. Yeah, my hand is down. My hand is down.
Okay.
My hand is down.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, ask a Kikuyu English speaker to say, red lorry, yellow lorry rolls down the truly rural roads of Limaru. I know, I actually have a Kikuyu woman who's at my speaking club at the American Center. I will ask her. The green roll, see, even I can't say it. The green lorry rolled down Limuru Road, the red lorry and the yellow lorry. I wish to wish the wish you wish, but if you wish to wish the wish of a witch, I would not wish to wish the wish you wish to. You guys are good. So yes, obviously, as we can see, tongue twisters are very fun. And they're just a nice way to introduce this idea of rhythm. As I noted earlier, it is much better if we can get learners to notice things about pronunciation rather than just telling them things about pronunciation. So this is an activity that I have done with learners to help them notice some aspects of rhythm. So English is a stress time language. We don't pronounce all of the syllables for the same amount of time. I think that Swahili is also stress time, and I know there's a lot of other languages here. But one example would be Japanese. Japanese is not stress timed. They pretty much give each syllable the same amount of time, so it's very flat. But even when students, L1 is stress time, when they are learning a new language, they kind of forget about rhythm because they are trying to remember each word, trying to pronounce each word correctly, trying to form correct grammar. And so rhythm often goes out the window. So this is something that you can do to kind of bring more awareness. So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many syllables is in that sequence? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 5 syllables. Just a reminder, syllables is the sound of a word. For example, my name is Mina, 2 syllables. We are in Kenya, 2 syllables. I live in Mombasa, 3 syllables. So if we count out this number sequence, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 5 syllables. It also has 5 beats. So if I'm counting it, I don't know if you can hear me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is 5 beats and 5 syllables. However, this next sequence is a little bit different. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It is still 5 beats, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But how many syllables is in this? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 5 beats, but 6 syllables. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So even though 7 is 2 syllables, we say it in 1 beat. We don't say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Instead, we say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The next sequence, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, has many syllables. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think it has 10 syllables. But how many beats? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Still, we have 5 beats, but 10 syllables. So we don't say 11, we say 11, 12. And the last one, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Again, we have many syllables, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 11 syllables, but 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 5 beats. So this is something you can do even with beginners, and it's good counting practice for beginners. But we can also do this with sentences. So if I read this sentence, friends cooked cake, it's a 3-syllable sentence, friends cooked cake, and it's 3 beats, friends cooked cake. We look at this next sentence, we see that we have an extra word. The friends cooked the cake. The friends cooked the cake. 5 syllables, but again, 3 beats. The friends cooked the cake. Here we have a future form. The friends will cook the cake. 6 syllables. The friends will cook the cake. Again, we just have 3 beats. And finally, here we have a future continuous. It has many syllables. The friends will be cooking the cake. Friends will be cooking the cake. It is still just 3 syllables. So this is rhythm, but it also tells us a little bit about stress and the importance of content words. Words like the don't usually get stressed. We put them together. The friends cooked the cake. In verbs, even though there might be some auxiliary verbs involved, we still just put them together. The friends will cook the cake. Even when it's got lots of parts, we'll be cooking. The friends will be cooking the cake. And so we only stress the content words, the subject, the verb, and the object. Those other little things like auxiliary verbs, prepositions, articles get no stress, unless we have something very specific we're trying to say. Earlier, in Dengui, you mentioned reading and having to correct students in reading. Listening to students read is one of my least favorite things. It's often torture. They don't pay attention to punctuation or anything. Somebody mentioned this actually last week, that we could assess punctuation by listening to a reader read, because you should be able to hear the punctuation in reading. For example, the sentence, if you see my brother, tell him to hurry home. There's a pause here because there's a comma, but often students will just say, if you see my brother, tell him to hurry home. And they won't pause at all. They'll just mush everything together. But we can ask them to do some chunking or thought groups. So words that go together, usually subjects with their initial verb, verbs with their prepositions often go together. If we have students read something like this, it usually just sounds awful. They might hear something, my name is Aziz, we live in a small village near Fergana, my mother's name is Nigara, she is my parents' niece, my father. And they just, it sounds terrible. It makes a person want to go to sleep. But we can ask them to do some chunking. So asking them to mark up something so that we can have some little pauses. If you see my brother, tell him to hurry home. So just by putting some marks there, we can get them to bring some rhythm in. Or if we have a longer piece here, my name is Aziz. We live in a small village near Fergana. Sounds much better than my name is Aziz. We live in a small village near. So asking our students to mark up a text. And if you have them practice with it, it actually becomes second nature to them. I worked with a teacher who really focused on pronunciation, and he was having his students read, and the reading sound like my first example. And he's just said to the student, chunking, and she read it again and she knew exactly what he's talking about. And suddenly her reading was much better because she wasn't paying attention to these thought groups. All right, moving on, we have intonation. Intonation is the rise and fall of the voice. We might think of this as the melody of language. And different structures have different intonation patterns or different melodies. So for example, the difference between a sentence and a question, Marie has a motorcycle, is a statement. But a question, Marie has a motorcycle, we have that uptick, that up intonation. But all questions don't sound the same. A yes or no question has an uptick, but WH questions have a downtick. So have you been to Mombasa? Is a yes or no question. And if you say yes, why have you been to Mombasa? And so it has a falling intonation. We can also see something like the difference between or and. Do you want cake or ice cream? Going down. Or do you want cake and ice cream? It continues to go up. So the first question is a choice. The second, you get to have cake and ice cream. You don't have to just choose one. So helping students notice these patterns, and then we can do some activities. So sometimes this is hard to do when we talk, and it's more useful to do this with humming. So humming is where we don't say the word. So if we go back to this, is Marie has a motorcycle, as opposed to, so we have that sound that goes up. In this activity here, student A chooses a sentence to hum, and student B responds with one of these answers. So for example, if student A wanted to say, I ate pizza, cookies, and cake, they would hum. This is a common intonation pattern for lists where we have So we can hear that this is a list, and so student B would say something like, oh, you must be full. Or we have a yes, no question at the bottom here. Is he going to the dentist? And so we know this is a yes or no question, and student B would guess, oh, yes, he has a toothache. Here we have two would questions, but again, we have an or and an and. Would you prefer coffee or tea? And so we have a choice here. Oh, tea, please. Or this one, again, this is a yes or no question, and it's an and question. Would you like some ice cream and cake? No, thank you, I'm not hungry. And then we also have here where we have an adverbial phrase at the beginning. Next week, we are flying to Rome. And so the next student would respond with this. I'm going to give you a chance to try this out in breakout rooms. I'm going to make the rooms pretty small so that everybody has a chance to speak. Collins, that's a great question. It's hard to, we can differentiate them by definition. Intonation is kind of the sound, but stress is part of it. Stress is what we put the emphasis on that makes the sound go up and down. And then stress is also part of rhythm. So although we do differentiate rhythm, stress, and intonation, in speaking, we can't really separate them. They all go together. That's a good question. So in your breakout rooms, you will take turns being student A and humming one of these sentences, and then the other person or people in the group will be student B and will try to respond. Student B doesn't hum, only student A hums. Student B should just give the regular answer, and then student A will say if they're correct or not. Right now, I can see Imali Joel. So if I were student A, I would hum one of these sentences, for example, and Imali Joel, if he was correct, would say, really, how long will you be there? So only student A is humming. And then next, I would have Imali Joel. He would hum something, and then I would say the answer. So you should take turns in your breakout room. I'm going to make your breakout rooms with only a few people so that everybody has a chance to talk. And this will be visible in your breakout room. We won't be in there long. I'll be in there for about 3 or 4 minutes, just to give you a chance just to try this out. You don't have to finish them all. And if you find that it's not going well, don't worry about it. Rhythm and intonation, I think, is pretty tricky. All right, so I have 2 to 3 participants in a room. If I notice that nobody is in your room with you, I will move you to another room. Okay, I'll go ahead and open up the rooms and I'll share this. I'll see you in about 3 or 4 minutes. Oh, good, Nancy. I'm glad it was fun. So how successful were you all? And do you agree with Nancy that was fun? I've had some teachers really like this activity and some hate it. Students usually like it, but not all teachers like it. What did you guys think?
It was like good.
Why?
Okay.
You enjoyed it, Tabitha?
Yes, I did.
Excellent. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Go ahead, Carol.
We're just with Margot, and it was really exciting. I got to be student A, and she was student B, and she was really she didn't like get it until the third time, and then I got to be student A. She got to be student A, and I was student B, and then I got to get it on the second round. So it was really fun. It was
excellent. Very good. And I'm glad that you didn't give up. You kept going till you were both successful. Yeah, Benedict, you're right. Humming is tough. But it can be, it can help take some of the focus off the actual words. Often when students try to read the words, especially beginners or intermediates, the effort of reading the words, I ate pizza, cookies, and cake, and you can not get any intonation out of them. So sometimes by humming, we can kind of take that cognitive load off the students and help them to focus a bit more on intonation. Oh, good, Jeffrey. I'm glad you enjoyed it too. I've seen it done also with kazoos. I don't know if you have kazoos here. They're like these little plastic kind of like things that you and that can be a little easier than actual humming because humming does take a little bit of work. Good. I'm glad you all like that. All right, so stress is the last super segmental we'll look at. Emily says, it was really fun. I was student B. We didn't manage to exchange our rules because of time, but you got the answers right. Excellent. That means you have a good ear and your partner is an excellent hummer for intonation. Great. Oh, it's very fun. Oh, great. I'm glad you guys like this. All right, so specific definition of stress is a sound or word that is pronounced longer, louder, and more clearly, and with bigger facial movements. So we can have stress on sounds and we can have stress on words. We can stress a syllable in a word, or we can stress words in sentences. And going back to that question, what's the difference between stress and intonation? So stress is part of the intonation. So stress is that loudness, clarity we put on certain sounds and words that helps us to develop intonation. So if we're looking at stress in a word, we have this word dessert. And so the stress is on the second syllable, dessert, which we pronounce it longer, louder, and more clearly. And you can see my face is making a dessert, more of a emphasis. Whereas this other word we have here is desert. And so des gets the louder part, the longer part. And you can see here, unlike in dessert, where the beginning, my mouth is kind of still, desert, I have to put more forcefulness into it. We have many words in English like this. Sometimes they are the difference between a noun and a verb. For example, if we have the word project, where the stress is on the project, as opposed to the verb if we need to project. We need to project something on the screen. So stress can mean the difference between different words, their meanings, their parts of speech. That's something sometimes I notice too for names in different countries. People put stress on different names. Emphasis of syllables on words. Yeah, Molly, can you kind of elaborate on that? It is very important, this stress in words, which is what we're looking at here, because it's the difference between certain words. Is it something you work on with your students?
Can I speak?
Yeah, please do.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to ask if I can also say that stress, in addition to what you have just told us here, it can also be said as the relative emphasis of syllables in a word or words in a sentence.
Yeah, I think that's a great definition. Yes, that's a very clear definition. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, and probably an easier definition for students to understand. Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So stress can be the difference, as I mentioned, between different words. But changing stress can also change the meaning in a sentence. So for example, if I say, I didn't say he stole the money, and the stress is on I, means something different than if I say, I didn't say he stole the money. And that's also different than if I say, I didn't say he stole the money. Right? So these three sentences, the words are completely the same. In the first one, we see I is getting the stress. I didn't say he stole the money, which means that someone else probably said it. Maybe someone thinks I said it, but I didn't say that. In B, I didn't say he stole the money. I said that she stole the money. Right? So the emphasis there is communicating that he isn't the one. And then in C, I didn't say he stole the money. He stole the car, right? So the emphasis on money is trying to clarify a misunderstanding. And so stress is communicative. So a similar exercise to the humming exercise, we have stress put on different sentences here. I said she might consider a new haircut. I said she might consider a new haircut. And then so with it, we have the meaning that goes with it. For example, I said she might consider a haircut means I said it, not somebody else, not my mom. I said it. So again, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, and you can, if you want to just look at the sentences and find their matching, you can do that. I would say that's the easiest way. Or you can use your stress and pronounce the word, and your partner can guess which one goes with it. I would suggest first finding the match to each, and then practice saying it and having your partner guess. And then I would switch A and B so that each person gets a chance to guess. And we have time. I'll put you in there for 4 minutes this time, or 4 to 5 minutes, just because there's a little bit more reading and comprehension involved in this one. First syllable is a prefix, second is stressed. Yes, like repeat. Very good. Yeah, I think that's important to mention too. And then also, for example, when we start adding suffixes like transporting, transportation, transportational. The stress will move in the word. Very good, Margot. Okay, so I'm putting you back into breakout rooms. I'll see you shortly. I hope you enjoyed this one as much, although there's no humming involved in this one. I'll keep the rooms the same size so that there's plenty of time, plenty of chance for everyone to talk. All right, welcoming everyone back from breakout sessions. I'm curious how that that compared to the previous activity. Any thoughts or opinions? Go ahead, Josiah.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I was in group 4,
Mhm.
and I'll try one where number 3 says the stress is on she. I said she might consider a new haircut, meaning not someone else, but she. I said she. Then the number 1 says I said she might consider a new haircut. So that means not another person. It is I who said. Is it? Oh no, it is C. I go with C. It was my idea. So I said, so that I may not be gluttonous. I just want to swallow those 2 only so that I let other people in other groups to eat, rather chew the rest. So I was with the Robina and Lillian.
Mhm.
So that's part of what we did. Thank
Good.
you. Group
Thank
4.
you.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing your experience. So Nancy says it was more challenging. Emily Joel says it was tricky, but you guys worked together to get the answers. Seth, you enjoyed it. Excellent. Emily, do you want to share something?
Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to share the answers very quickly so that we can see if we were correct. Yeah, for the first one, I said she might consider a new haircut. We gave the answer as C. That is, it was my idea. For number 2, I said she might consider a new haircut. We gave the answer as D. That is not something else. For number 3, I said she might consider a new haircut. We gave the answer as F, not another person. For number 4, we gave the answer as B, B. B, that is, it's a possibility actually, number 4. Number 5, we gave the answer as G, that is, she'll think about it. It's a good idea. Number 6, we gave A, that is not just a haircut. And lastly, number 7, we gave D, not something else. I don't know if we are correct or you can correct us on something.
It's perfect.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent. Nice teamwork. Very good. Nancy, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think some of his answers are like our group. So I was in room 8. Number 1, I said she might consider a new haircut. Our answer was, it was my idea. Number 2, I said she might consider a new haircut. Our answer was, don't you understand me? The stress is on said. So it is on the action, like someone is stressing, this is what I am saying. And then number 3, I said she
Oh, we lost you. Oh,
haircut. Number 4, I said she might consider a new haircut. It's a possibility. Number 5, I said she might consider a new haircut. She should think about it. It's a good idea. Number 6, I said she might consider a new haircut, not just a haircut. Number 7, I said she might consider a new haircut. Our answer was not something else.
excellent. Very good. You are completely correct. Did you enjoy the activity?
Yeah, though it was quite challenging.
Good job. Way to persevere. Thank you. And Jumas, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I have the same. We were in group 7. I was with Seth and Benedict. We had the same answers as for the previous speaker. We had a challenge actually, but we sorted it out in question 1 and question 3, where we have to specify which pronoun or who is it who spoke and who might consider a new idea. But what we came up was the same. Number 1, it was C, it was my idea. Number 3, it was F, not any other person. And then a new haircut, not just a haircut, but a new one. So we thought this is a very nice, because of the mental work involved, it is very good for students, especially when you want to teach them about the meaning with the stress in word stress in a sentence. It's a very nice one. I'll try it.
Excellent. Yeah, and I would suggest to scaffold it, I would say have them do it first just as a matching, and then after they have matched, then you might have them practice saying it. And then maybe even cut this paper in half. So one student gets the left side of the paper, the other student gets the right side of the paper, and then they can see if not only if they can match them, but can they match them through actually using the intonation, because that's a whole other thing. All right, so just kind of to wrap things up here. When do we teach pronunciation? I would say from the very beginning, from when students are learning their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. We can be thinking about the specific sounds of these, about the rhythm of counting. Even when students learn, hi, how are you? They're not saying, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? It has a sound to it, right? We should be teaching us when we're doing speaking activities, when we're doing listening activities, when we're doing vocabulary, reading, grammar, writing exercises. Pronunciation is a part of all of these things. So basically anytime. And just to highlight pronunciation and grammar, some of you might be thinking, what? Those don't go together. But for example, conditionals have a sound to it. If we have the if at the beginning, we always have a rising intonation in the middle. If you see my brother, tell him to hurry home. Or adjective clauses always have a sound to them as well. Oh, good, Benedict, I'm glad you like it. These are some additional resources, different websites that have different pronunciation games, things like this. This last link here is a great photocopyable book that has all different pronunciation games in it. I really like them. And then finally, you have your phone. If you've ever done speaking dictations, trying to speak into your phone and see if your phone understands you is a great test of your pronunciation. And if students get to use their phone in class, they usually like that. Does anybody have any questions, or Austin, anything to add before we wrap this up tonight?
Any questions before I conclude? Yes, I think we are good. Yeah?
Please go back to the previous page. Just what Mina just said. Please, Mina, just go back to what you just said before this screen.
Before this one or on this one?
On that one, thanks.
Okay, I was basically, my main gist here is that pronunciation is something that we should incorporate into our other classes. I would never want to spend like 40 minutes just focusing on pronunciation, but pronunciation is obviously part of speaking, but also it's part of listening, understanding what speakers are communicating through things like intonation. Certainly it's part of vocabulary, making sure we pronounce vocabulary words correctly. When we're doing reading activities, when students are reading aloud, it's a good opportunity to work on pronunciation. Grammar has pronunciation that goes with it. Different grammar structures have different sounds. And then even if we have writing activities, maybe students are reading their writing to each other. So we might want to think about pronunciation in any of these aspects. It doesn't mean we need to spend a long time on it. Maybe we do a quick exercise just to support pronunciation. And then these were the resources. Glad you guys had fun and enjoyed. Anything else tonight?
Okay, thank you. So, oh yeah, Seth, you can say, continue before I finish.
Yeah, I generally wanted to say that it has been very interesting. I've been following keenly. Though I would like to suggest that maybe in future you can review this lesson, particularly on pronunciation. It has been hell. Teaching students pronunciation is hell, Mina, in African, particularly with our L1 as it does not match with English at all. There are L1s that there is no correlation at all. So there is big problem, particularly with the vowel insertion, consonant displacement, and there's a big problem. So if we have to, that is why in most cases nowadays you see the students are exposed. Their L1 actually is a national language, like in Kenya. Most of the children nowadays, parents expose them to Kiswahili, not even their native language, so that they don't have problem with pronunciation, particularly when it comes to English. So my request would be that probably, if time will be available, you redo the lesson, particularly on pronunciation, so that at least it helps some of us here and there, actually. Thank you very much, Justina. Yeah,
Thanks,
you
Seth.
can continue, you can proceed.
And hopefully if you all have some tricks or tips that work, you'll share with each other as well. And Jumas, I like that idea of doing it as a warm-up. Very good.
Joel?
Yes, oh, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you. And then I wanted to request the activity that you gave us on stress, the last activity that you have just given us, kindly share with us. I don't know, on WhatsApp or whatever, so that at least we might use it maybe at a personal level.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think it has been a great session. And it is great that we are having more and more teachers joining us from different parts of this country and of this continent. And I just want to appreciate all what you guys are doing. And for the sake of those who have joined us for the first time, this is English Language Professional Association of Kenya that coordinates these events. And at the same time also, we have opened up the membership. If you want to become a member of LPAC, you can pay 1,000 shillings, which is non-refundable. And you can also pay 1,200, which is the monthly subscription. So we are encouraging people that when they pay, they pay all the money at once, or they pay the registration and then they pay the annual subscription, because there's quite a lot that we have in store for us, including these sessions that we are having. And we look forward to more engagements because we can see the different areas that we're having challenges with. At the same time, we're able to share a lot of things, including the best practices and all that. So I just want to thank you on behalf of LPAC, and we look forward to see you guys next week again. And for those who have joined for the first time, I've just done a text with my number. So you can either text me on text or just chat me up so that I can be able to add you into the main group. And for those who are a bit worried, is that all these are shared. All what we do here, the videos, the slides, we share them out. So you can always take your time to go through them when you are not so much busy. And also when, given that also the time we are meeting here is very short. So thank you everyone. And I hope we have all had a great Easter. Bye. Thank you guys.
Bye everyone. Good night. I hope to see you
Mina.
again.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a
Bye.
nice session.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Mina.
Salimia huyo kijana. Junior.
Bye-bye.